tandem is back again. The tandem is back. The tandem is back again. J-Love, the tandem is back again. D-Hawk, the tandem is back again. The tandem is back again. The tandem is back again.
To what's going on here in the NFL with the Colin Kaepernick situation?
I just want to get into what we were talking about with people yesterday. We could put this on the air right now. Colin Kaepernick, man, what's the deal?
Yeah, this is.
Why is he not on team right now? Why is he not signed?
Look, let's call a cat, a spade a spade. The NFL is just setting an example out of Kaepernick. You know, they don't want the problem that the NBA had a few years ago with the LA Clippers ousting their owner for some of his racist remarks. The NFL, you know, they want their players to play the game and be quiet while they do it. And let's call it what it is. This guy took a stance. You know, he was not a violent stance. He used his First Amendment right, took a kneel or whatnot. May have offended some people, but he did no harm to anyone. He's out helping communities, not even just American communities, but he's worldwide, you know, providing food.
I don't want to spend too much time on what he did. We know what he did, and he had both sides of the argument. And you got to, you know, that's why America's great. You respect both sides of the argument. The people who said, you know, he shouldn't have done it, and the people who say, you know what, he has the right to not stand. But he had players doing the same thing with him. His impact was shown all across the league, and not just the league, but the whole country. You had high school players doing it. Let's keep it real. If he was the only one doing it, then I could understand, you know, the argument of people believing that he really was crazy for what he was doing. But if other people were following suit, don't you think the message was heard? So that's one thing with Kaepernick. But it's all about on the product on the field. And one more thing, why are other players being blackballed? And I mean, there are other players that weren't standing, like I just said, across the league, and they're still on teams. And you saw what the Seahawks did. Doug Baldwin and Richard Sherman, all those guys standing together, but locking arms. So they didn't take a knee, but they sent their message in a different way. And I think people respected that as well, what they were trying to do. But you know what? The only reason that they could do something like that in confidence is because of the confidence from the organization. And that's why I think the Seahawks are the perfect team for Colin Kaepernick to be on, because they have no ill feedback to what he did last year.
Right. Yeah. The environment that Coach Carroll and that front office has built in Seattle that's the perfect locker room for Colin Kaepernick to go to. You touched on it. You know, the Seahawks interlocked each other's arms, showing support for what Colin Kaepernick was doing. Just 4 years ago, Russell Wilson and Kaepernick were going against each other in the NFC Championship. You know, these guys are very familiar with each other. They were division rivals. And the Seahawks, which we don't know behind the scenes, but what we believe are the first team to even reach out to Kaepernick. That speaks big. And I think the main point, you know, people want to use the excuse, Kaepernick's skill set isn't an NFL skill set. Well, boom, we have the perfect scenario for him going to Seattle, backing up Russell Wilson. Look, Wilson and Kaepernick are, on the different side of the fence when it comes to throwing, but they have the similar playing styles and similar skill sets. They both, Russell Wilson may be a little better in the pocket, but they both can improvise and make something out of nothing. And I think that the Seahawks need that, with only the undrafted free agent from last year, Boykin, backing up Russell Wilson. And Boykin is in a lot of legal trouble right now.
And back to, Colin Kaepernick's skill set, it hasn't changed. I don't understand why people, I don't understand what happened to him. And and it has nothing to do with maybe what he did, but just what happened. Like, how did this all unravel? It's just 4 years ago, we were talking about him being one of the best in the game. He had the big contract. He took the Niners to the Super Bowl. The Niners were nothing just a few years before that. And you give a lot of credit to to Jim Harbaugh and what he did. But quarterback is the most important position on the field. And was it Alex Smith that took them to the Super Bowl? No. He took them to the NFC Championship. But it was Kaepernick took them to the Super Bowl and then another NFC Championship game and went to Seattle where not a lot of people win. Very few win in Seattle. And you remember that game where Richard Sherman deflected the pass to Crabtree.
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't – these were battles. These Seattle – San Francisco games were battles. I mean, I know a couple times that San Francisco went up there and got their asses handed to them by the Seahawks. But, I mean, this is a great rivalry, and it's not the same anymore. What he did last year with the terrible Niners offense, 16-4 touchdown interception ratio, you're telling me you don't want him to be your backup? Are you kidding me?
Right.
You don't want Colin Kaepernick to be your backup quarterback. For a guy, Russell Wilson, who hasn't had competition since his rookie year, like real competition, like to actually battle it out and win the job, obviously, what he did there. And ever since he's had Tavares Jackson and now Trevon Boykin, who I like him, but he's off-the-field issues and he doesn't have a lot of experience. And there's a no-brainer here.
Right. No, I agree. And since the NFL merger in 1970, 166 quarterbacks started a minimum of 40 games. Out of those 166 quarterbacks, the guy that Colin Kaepernick replaced last year, Blaine Gabbert, has the worst win-loss percentage out of those 166. And guess who has a job? Blaine Gabbert. Gabbert had more interceptions in 5 games than Colin Kaepernick had in 11 last year. Like, for all those that don't want to pay attention to him being blackballed, this was the icing on the cake, the cherry on top. There's no arguing this. Gabbert's TD, you touched on it. Cap was 16-4 TD to interception ratio. Gabbert was 6-5. Are you kidding me? In 6 less games. Are you kidding me? He's the number one. But if we look on the 5th worst win percentage of those 166 quarterbacks, Josh McCown. And guess what? He has a job. He was just signed this offseason as well.
And he's probably going to start for the New York Jets.
Right. And then
probably going to be the starting quarterback week 1.
And the Jets should have had first dibs on Colin, who lives in New York right now. He's training 5 days out of the 7-day week, going hard. This is the first time in 2 years he hasn't had to have a surgery. He's been 100% healthy. His diet is back right. His weight is up. This dude is as healthy as he's ever been, fast as he's ever been. And they've had the opportunity to reach in their back pocket and bring him in for a private workout, and they failed to do so. Geno Smith has a job. Geno Smith. Are you kidding me? Mark Sanchez, the butt fumble Mark Sanchez, has a job.
He's a backup. I can't believe it. You look at there's a handful of teams you could think of that should have really seriously considered at least put an offer out to his agent, at least throw something out there to get something done. The Browns, the Jets, the Bears. I mean, even you could say the Jaguars. Like, have that insurance in your pocket.
Yeah.
Have that. Make your quarterback room better. And in case your starting quarterback tears an ACL or something, or a rotator cuff, even Carolina. I mean, why is Derek Anderson still a backup quarterback? Like, I understand he's known the system for a while and he's serviceable. That is the definition of serviceable. But if you can bring in a guy with pretty much the same skill set as Cam Newton, and he can be your backup, and in case anything we saw what Cam Newton went through last year. Wouldn't you feel better as a coaching staff, as an organization? I just know this is all about politics. And, I mean, we can end the conversation here. We pounded the table. This is literally politics. Has nothing to do with football talent at all or experience.
No, not at all. And the Seattle Seahawks saw as clear as day what they could look like without Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was banged up last year.
The Seahawks win games.
Yep.
That's why the Seahawks win games consistently. That's why they're a perennial playoff team. That's why they're always in the Super Bowl conversation talk, because they look past the character issues, because they're an organization that has the right people to deal with players Now, there's a line, and they know that. There's a line on character. If your talent does not measure up with those character issues, then you're not worth it. But if you are worth it and they can work with you, they'll do it. And here, there's not a question of character issues. This is about a guy that stood up for his rights, and that's it.
Yeah, and like we've touched on the Seahawks. They have a very good presence in Seattle, Washington. Up there in the Northwest, they are king supreme. So we've touched on the strong locker room. Their owner, extremely wealthy owner, Paul Allen. They're built to withstand any pushback that the community would provide, which I don't think that they would get that much pushback. But with Pete Carroll, player-friendly guy, this is just a perfect opportunity. And the people want to say, oh, Kaepernick was awful last year. Turn on the DNA. Stop paying attention to the record of that awful 49ers team with the head coach that has burned his way out of the NFL from 2 teams in the last few years. They were 1-10, sure. But look at the DNA. See how much time he had with that awful offensive line. Check out how many passes were dropped, and he still had good numbers. 59.2% of his passes were completed, 2,241 yards, 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Now, that's not even touching on the rushing yards. That's not even touching on the win that he willed his team to win down in L.A. against that team that he brought them back from being down. This guy can still play. This guy can still be a benefit as a backup to your team. Bring him in. Bring him in. How can you say that he doesn't want to play football when you haven't even asked the guy? Bring him in. Talk to his representatives. So I just don't understand. Those numbers that we just went over, he should have been signed a long time ago. He might not be the 2012 Jim Harbaugh coached Colin Kaepernick, but he doesn't need to be. You bring him in to be the backup. He has more talent than the group of quarterbacks that have been signed this offseason, bar none. He's only 29 years old. Just last year, John Elway, a Super Bowl winning Hall of Fame quarterback, he was John Elway's first choice to come in and replace Peyton Manning. But Denver wanted him to take the pay cut. They couldn't come to the terms. We could even not be here right now if he would have took a pay cut and came to an agreement on the contract. If John Elway saw something, I'm pretty sure John Elway knows what he's talking about when it comes to quarterbacks at certain times. He knew not to sign Osweiler last year and give him that big money. He knows a little something, right? Like, let's touch base. Mike Glennon, big money contract. Geno Smith, Brian Hoyer, Matt Barkley, Mark Sanchez, Nick Foles, Josh McCown, Chase Daniel signed this offseason. Blaine Gabbert, as we said, E.J. Manuel, Aaron Murray, T.J. Yates, Matt McGloin, who we're very familiar with being the backup quarterback for the Raiders all these years, Case Keenum. I just listed all the quarterbacks that have signed in the last few months. And Colin Kaepernick is still on the sideline looking for an opportunity. Get out of here.